Welcome to Career Competitor, the show that seeks to light that competitive fire within you in order to jumpstart or optimize your career. While you're here, I appreciate, firstly, you choosing to listen to the show. But whatever podcasting platform that you're listening to is on, be sure to take a moment now and click a 5th star. Let's say if you're on Apple Podcasts, give us a follow if you're on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Make sure that you're giving us a follow and subscribing on any platform that you possibly can. Don't be afraid to share the show as well with any of your network. And at the same time, be sure to head to careercompetitor.com where you can learn more about what it is I offer as a performance and leadership coach and see how I can help either you or those that you are responsible for to work towards their optimal self and realize their potential through achieving optimal performance. Let's get to the show. Okay, guys, today my guest is an online weight loss coach who empowers busy entrepreneurs and business folks, much like myself, to invest in themselves through creating a growth mindset in order to improve physiques, energy, and confidence. His company, livegreatlifestyle.com, is where you can learn all about his expertise and the lean body method that is helping clients such as pro athletes, New York Times bestselling authors, and world champion fighters become their best selves. I'm so excited to be welcoming in Luke DePron to the Career Competitor podcast. Luke, how's it going, brother?
It's going, man. It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, let's start in the right now. I'm sure we're going to rewind a little bit as we go through this discussion, but let's just talk a little bit about what I gave you there, what I gave people there in the introduction. What is it we're doing today? What does a typical day look like in the life of Luke DePron?
Typical day for me. Oh man. Usually I start honestly diving into client data. So I'm big on assessing all the data that my clients that they're providing, basically to see where people are at, see what tools they need to inject to keep moving them forward. So that's a big part of my day. Obviously, I also handle a lot of the marketing side. So here we are on a podcast, spreading the message. And of course, content creation is a big part of what I do to continue again, driving that message forward. But yeah, man, there's a lot of data diving into for me. And then of course I do coaching calls throughout the day with clients as well.
That's awesome. And I love already just from that initial insight is that you live in a world that is historically and for so many right reasons, very data driven. You know, we're talking about science, we're talking about health and wellness, but in terms of optimal performance, and this is something you and I have spoken about prior to this interview, there's a mindset component, there's an individual component, there's something that, let's say, the science can get you so far, but then someone like yourself comes in and can really facilitate that process to true optimal levels, which is what we're all about on the show. What does it look like to truly perform at an optimal level to become competitive within your industry? So I'm curious, based on those sort of days where you're looking at the data, when you're looking at the insight from clients, as much as you want to maybe lean on science, let's say, what is your initial approach when, say, oh, the data, the insight doesn't look as good as we would necessarily want it to? Like, what's that initial approach look like?
Sure. Yeah. So this could be like, hey, let's have an emergency call here.
Right.
Yeah. So the value in acquiring data, and data could literally be something as simple as, a weight check-in or a photo food journal, or, logging on MyFitnessPal, whatever it is, logging their actual workouts. It's so we can actually address and say, okay, here's the end result goal that we had. Say it was, we want to have a 20-pound reduction in a 12-week phase. And it's like, we're not seeing that result. Okay, great. We just need to be able to look at the data to say, okay, we're not actualizing on what we need to do. So there's the big reason, and this tends to be the case, versus if we're not actually tracking these things, it's very easy. It is very easy. And I could be as guilty as this as well to say, I've heard this a bazillion times. Oh, I'm eating pretty good. And it's like, well, what is pretty good? Pretty good doesn't really tell us a whole lot. And all we're really looking for is benchmarks from where we can make adjustments from. So it could be something as simple as like, oh, wow, okay, like our step count has been low for the last 2 weeks. Like that's really good data because we're just trying to find points of leverage. But beyond that, to bring it back, like, well, how do we deal with that? And oftentimes it is psychological or even maybe lifestyle driven, and recognizing like, hey, where you're at right now on this 2 week grind of business, realistically, we're not going to see that rate of fat loss, that
Mhm.
we this ideal rate. And that's okay, because we assess like what you're actually dealing with. Like maybe you have a launch going on in your business, or some big fire that you're putting out, or a merger, or whatever, who knows. And realistically, it's like, hey, maybe we're just going to hold the line these 2 weeks. So it is bringing people back, I think, psychologically, to recognizing where we have to work within the constraints of their capacity, and
Mhm.
their unique life is going to be unique to them, right? Maybe you have a kid that's sick for 2 weeks, and it's like, it's not giving up fully, but maybe it is pausing on some things. Maybe it's holding the line, and really just trying to keep people in the game in the long haul. Like,
Mhm.
that is the name of this when we're talking your health and your wellness, because what you do in really 12 weeks is going to be inconsequential compared to the year.
Yeah, I love it. And immediately, the obvious thing you're saying here, it turns out success and improvement and progress, it's not a straight line, folks. I mean, I don't think anyone was naive to the fact that it was anything but that. So for
Yeah,
me, I love hearing what you're saying here, because you're respecting the capacity of the client based on whatever's going on within their world. And so much, for someone like myself that's been so connected with health and fitness and sport my entire life, so much of the examples I've seen over the years of people, when they get off the wagon, so to speak, when they really just say, I can't do it, it's too much, blah, blah, blah. A lot of the time, it's not because they're even regressing. It's just because they've, for whatever reason, for a small stint, they've not seen improvement. And that
sure.
lack of improvement is enough for them to say, hey, I'm getting out of this altogether. And
Yep.
so I'm curious because I think this is a message that it goes far beyond just simply health and fitness and wellness. I think this is something we can hear and learn from in all capacities of life. Is what does that message from you look like when it's, hey, I need you to hold the line right now. I need you to be patient right now. Like, how do you explore those emotions? Because it usually is an emotional situation. So how do you explore that with clients?
Yeah, so this is where I'm really big, and everything I do is individualized, and it's helping clients understand like how they can personally manipulate all of these different leverage points that they have access to. And again, recognizing that there are seasons of life. And then it's stepping back in, okay, let's set some minimum guaranteed standards. And this is across this is kind of a through line through my entire coaching process with people. It's like, I'm very big on setting minimum standards. We can exceed those, but we're always going to set our guaranteed minimum standards. And week to week, these can adjust. So again, if some crazy weeks coming up, 2 weeks, and it's like, cool, let's pull those minimum standards back. And now, rather than focused on the actual result of, again, say like a targeted rate of fat loss, let's just focus on the task. And like, that's the success factor, which really, you could play that game the whole way through, to where, hey, let's just focus on, again, hitting those minimum standards. Let's go for 2 walks. Let's hit 2 workouts. Let's photo food journal our meals. Even if you're in a situation where you didn't even have a choice of what you ate, because I don't know, somebody in some meeting is providing it. The action of just staying in the game by still submitting a photo food journal of like some crazy sandwich that you were just given, and that can actually be a marker of success for that week. And that's fine. That keeps you in the game. And again, it is about staying in this thing in the long haul.
Right.
And I would say giving up the all in, all out approach is probably key as well.
Yeah, I love that. Something you said there is as funny as that sort of the crazy sandwich example may sound. It's almost like, hey, listen, I'm doing something right now that would be considered maybe a defeat, but I'm acknowledging it though at the same
Mm-hmm.
time. I'm actually embracing the fact, like, hey, I'm doing something here that goes against the plan, that is probably going to create a little bit of resistance in my progress here for just a very short period of time, but I'm actually acknowledging it. And by acknowledging it, I'm actually taking control of it in the
Yep.
process as well, which I love that.
Yeah, and actually, with a lot of clients, it's like, say, if I had someone who they went on a family vacation to Hawaii, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, yeah, let's adjust some things, right? Like, first off, let's not go to the gym, because you're going to go to Hawaii maybe like 3 times in your life. And I would suggest you not spend any of that time in the gym. But can we be more active? Can we walk the beach more? And again, this comes back to like, success might be holding the line that week and not putting on weight. Like, that's a great marker of success for that week. And I think that that's really important to understand. And even within a well-built plan and approach, like, there may be a time period where actually having a dedicated rest week, where you kind of um, physiologically pull back some of that leverage, and you can time those, and you can coincide those with moments of high work output to where you really aren't able to maybe dive as deep into, say, something like a caloric deficit or really hard workouts. And once you understand that physiologically, like, hey, this is actually a benefit that we want to do this week anyway, and we're just going to pair it with your crazy time. So again, not seeing that targeted fat loss that week, like, hey, that's still success because we actually wanted to maybe like put the brakes on for a little bit, like with some dedicated, diet breaks.
I really like it because for me, with my background in sport, so much of what you're referencing here has this athlete mindset towards it in terms of approaching things. You use the word seasonal before, like it is a season. There's season to season to season in terms of how people are approaching their health and fitness. And whether they may be, they're not running as fast as an elite athlete, swimming as fast, lifting as heavy, whatever it may be. But there are parameters that those athletes live their lives by that can be learned from everyday you and me. And so I think being able to embrace and say, hey, you do realize that those elite athletes out there, they have downtime. They have easy days.
Yeah.
They take it easy. They sometimes eat badly too. Oh my gosh, just it's insane to think, right? But it's true because they need that almost to remain human, if you will. And I think sometimes when we hear this health and wellness path, it's like, oh my gosh, what am I taking on? How much is this going to change my lifestyle? What maneuverability if any, am I going to have moving forwards?
This is a big conversation I often have in the beginning when I work with a client. Is I do think there's a massive misconception of what it takes to improve your health, improve your wellness, and much of the exposure that I think people are having does come from the bodybuilding world, which there's many great things to learn from the bodybuilding community as far as manipulating body composition, drive, dedication, focus, all of these amazing things. However, to get to a place where I think most people want, which is to have a physique that they're comfortable with, proud of, have energy, you don't have to go down that bodybuilder path. And so I do think there's a little bit of a misconception of what it takes. And, something as simple as like, you got to go to the gym every day. In fact, for the 99% of the people, myself included, I would never recommend a everyday training program. It's actually going to be an inefficient plan. So I think there's a misunderstanding of really the cost of what it takes. And it's pulling people back and understanding, and then with the business folks, I often share this. It's like most people who are misappropriating their energy, they're approaching it like a marketing launch, when really your health and wellness needs to exist more like a business plan. It has to have this longer term kind of foundational approach, and it can't be this all consuming effort. And unfortunately, again, most people, they try to go all in. They think, okay, for the next 90 days, like a marketing launch, we're going to buckle down and get this done. And the reality is, you're not going to speed up physiology that much faster with that much extra effort. And instead, if we play that long game, man, you can have some really radical improvements in your wellness.
Yeah, and that's some fantastic insight just in terms of so many different areas of life. But keeping on this theme of health and wellness, something you said there of just sort of understanding the cost of what it takes. And I will say this, that, when you and I first spoke, we had probably about a 15-minute chat about what it looks like to be, accountable of the self. And
sure,
I think for me, I mean, we should have just pressed record right there and just recorded that part. But at the same time, I wanted to purposely get into this within this interview, because once a client, let's say, understands, okay, the cost of what it takes isn't necessarily as grand as I thought it may be. However, there's still a commitment. There's still accountability that needs to be implemented. Yep. You and I are very much cut from the same cloth. We talked about that off air, like this notion of, hey, I don't need someone to tell me to get up and go do this and go do this. I listen to my alarm and I get in my car and I go to the gym, or I listen to my alarm and I hop on the road and I start riding my bike, whatever it is. I'm accustomed to that, and I know you do the similar thing. But when it comes to truly teaching self-accountability, something that I know you're so passionate about, one, where does that even start? But two, where are you trying to sort of go to with that? Like, what are you truly trying to teach people?
Yeah, this is where, again, it comes back to, I think, you have to first start with that recognition of like what you're trying to take on. It's realistic. and that it's not this big grandiose thing. And like, can you work out a few times per week? You already eat food, so you're likely just going to be making adjustments. That's not even an add in, right? That's just an adjustment. Um, and then again, within the constraints of what I do, it's just having certain KPIs, and then it's recognizing like I'm here to support, assist, I can help make adjustments, but ultimately it's on you to execute. And something as simple as like having to again input that data, like input your weight checks. And this is where again you have to like kind of step up and decide that you want to do this, and you'll see it, because I've had clients that don't have that, to where it's like, hey, you're not getting your weekly your minimum of 3 weight checks per week.
Right.
And there's a video, the very beginning, where it says, hey, put it in your Google Calendar when you're going to weight check for these first 2 weeks until we develop that habit. And so it's, I think, really trying to give people small little habit-based check-ins that they're required to do to build up a little bit of momentum. Again, when you start to see a bit of results, that's going to drive that behavior. And all of a sudden that self-accountability becomes quite easy when the feedback loop is fulfilled with the outcome that you're after. And I always tell people, I'm like, well, why wouldn't you eat food that makes you feel great? That tastes amazing. Why wouldn't you do these activities? And it's just most people, they're not starting at that point where exercise feels good to them, where again, eating these foods, like there is an adjustment period. And this is where some external accountability does help. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it does come down to you understanding what your personal KPIs are, your minimum guaranteed standards that you're going to hit. And now it is a game of congruency. That is what you were executing on. Are you a guy who's going to do what you said you were going to do? And that can literally be the game that you're playing. Not, I'm trying to work out, I'm trying to do this. No, I'm trying to be a guy who does what I said I'm going to do. And we set those standards. Again, I say minimum guaranteed standards. So when, in my intake form, I ask every person that fills it out in intake form, it's how many days per week can you train? And dedicated exercise, because we still have to do some other lifestyle habits. I cannot tell you how many people say 7 days per week. And I say, well, how'd that work out last time you tried that? And it often didn't. So we scale that way back. Generally, it's like 3 times per week. Maybe for somebody, it's even twice a week. And now that is a game of congruency. Are you a guy who does what you said you're going to do? And that becomes a lot easier to create some self-accountability, because it's challenging you as like a whole person at that point.
Yeah, the notion of the feedback loop is something I've heard before, but it is something that is worth repeating, because what I enjoy about what you're saying here is that feedback loop will continue to evolve, as you adapt, as you create these habits. And at first, these habits of doing the 2 or 3 workouts a week that you've maybe never done before, or certainly haven't done for a long time, that in itself, how can you possibly know how your body's going to react to that if you don't do it for long enough? How can you, How, you know what I'm saying? And again, with the food is such a great example, because again, if we don't eat healthy for long enough, then our body's never given that opportunity to actually adapt to what it means to fuel itself that way.
Yeah.
So for instance, for me, I always love using this example because Chinese food is like my absolute guilty pleasure. But here's the thing. Every time I eat it, I sleep like crap that night. Awful. Because my body's at this point now. It's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing to me right now? This is just not what we put in us. This is not how we do this. Did you want to get any sleep tonight? Like, this is just awful. And so, but the only reason I can get to that point is from years and years and years of like 90% of what I do put into my body. I look at it. I consider what I'm putting in before it goes in, and that's kind of what I mean with the feedback loop.
Yeah, and I assume for you now, it's much easier when you are considering having that Chinese food. You're like, maybe it's not quite worth it, because
I just don't do it anymore. No, I just don't do it anymore. No, or at least if I've got a real hankering for Chinese food, I'll just look at something I can cook myself and try to make it as healthy as possible.
Sure.
But you're absolutely right.
Well, and that's where again, we talk about. I think there's a misconception on the cost of what it takes to improve your health and wellness. There's also a drastically undervalued benefit, because you haven't experienced it yet. And I always tell people, I go, there's a reason that everybody that you personally know who's like started to exercise and starting to get in shape, they start being obnoxious about it. They start posting their workouts on Facebook, and they're sending you pictures, they're posting pictures of their food, and like literally it's like they're obnoxious. And it's because they're getting such positive feedback from it. It's like they want to share and express that. So you also have to recognize there's massive utility in pulling the leverage on your health and wellness that you personally are going to get. It's not this thing like, I need to do, but I don't feel a benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Like you feel massive benefits from this. Again, you sleep better, you have more energy, you have more stamina, you just have a little bit more like zest for life. Obviously the physical of, you're going to look better and those things, but it really is this, I think almost non this very like whimsical, hard to identify thing of like what it feels like to feel really good. And you don't know till you get there. But once you get there, you're like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, why would I go back? Why would I eat the Chinese food that makes me sleep terrible? And that's where, again, now that feedback loop, it becomes very easy to execute on these things, because why would you not eat food that tastes good, but makes you feel good? Why would you not do physical things that make you feel good? And so you have a massive positive reinforcement on this stuff once you've executed long enough to experience that feedback.
Absolutely. And the one thing that I'm really hearing you talk about here, Luke, is this notion of one, absolutely, on the front end, committing to something like this and appreciating it's going to take time. But one thing that's really coming through, I would say, is who you're doing it for, the why behind you doing it. You alluded to it there with the social media stuff, and I get it. People start to see positive change, and they want to say, "Hey, whoa, look what I'm doing. Look how I have a couple of abs for the first time, whatever it might be." They want to do that, and rightly so. It's important for those people to feel empowered by that. But underneath it, I'm curious for you as a coach, because I see a lot of the same in the business world with the work that I do, is that sometimes they want to go and start, obviously, letting people know the success that they're having and the work that they're doing. And I'm all about it. But I'm curious, how do you keep people in that mindset of, hey, why are you doing this? Who are you doing this for?
Yeah. So it's funny. I just sent a client a video right before we hopped on in this vein. And so like I have an exercise called the Big Why, and it's just a few simple questions to help them identify like what is the core driver of why they're doing this. And it's okay to have it be something external from yourself in the beginning, and have again, we can say like a deeper purpose for this. And oftentimes it's for our kids. Working with a lot of business owners, they recognize like, hey, I need to be like, as a business leader, like as the physical presence of this business, as the face of it, like I want to like show up physically better, and like that's okay. And so creating as many layers, I think, of motivation is absolutely fine, particularly if it's something that like speaks internally to you, and it is a true core driver. So again, your children, like when you are struggling to execute on, say, something like smoking reduction, which it's like, hey, this is like a habit that we're trying to curb. It's like it's great to be able to reflect back and say like, well, why do I want to quit smoking? And it's like, not because I just want to be healthier. No, like let's take that and like let's drive way deeper. And it's like, I don't want to die. And it's like, okay, well, what's that going to cost you? And we'll drive it all the way down. And I always use this example because I do work with a lot of men, and it's like, cool, is another guy going to walk your daughter down the aisle on her wedding day? And tethering that cost. And you have to actually like buy into the belief of like, I hate to say it, this negative outcome with that negative behavior, and really like buy into the idea that like that's what it's costing you. And once you do that, like that type of internal like driver, I think is really useful too. And I always tell people, I'm like stab yourself with that thing out of self-love, right? And once you get past it, we can maybe let some of that go, because now we're being pulled through positive emotions of, again, like feeling good, like, wow, man, like I can hike further now because I'm not like, it's not as hard to breathe by not smoking. But in the beginning, to like create that fire and that drive, like what's it costing you? And really build in that big reason on why you're doing this. And oftentimes it comes down to family, and oftentimes it comes down to business for guys.
Yeah, and this is the message that I was so hopeful that we would get to, because it's the powerful part of this, and we've kind of worked our way from this sort of more generic, wider look at what it is you do, and now we're really hammering home, like, listen, this is why the investment happens in the first place. Someone at some point has a huge why that pretty much interrupts their life for the most part, and looks them in the face and says, hey, at some point you have to care about this why. If you don't choose to do it now, it's going to be too late at some point. And
Yeah.
that is the truth for so many people. And I do appreciate as well that you mentioned leadership within what you were talking about too, because the work that I do with leaders, I always love these moments when they come to me to talk about what a leadership development program looks like. And the first thing I start doing is talking about, well, what are you doing to invest in you? And they're like, oh no, I think you misunderstood me.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like, well, no, I didn't, I completely understood what it is you're looking for, but how are you investing in you? How are you prioritizing you? How are you taking care of you? Because you will always be half the leader you're capable of being until you choose to do that, until you choose to actually invest in you.
yeah. And I think, depending on obviously the size of the organization and the scope of where that leader is positioned in
Mm-hmm.
proximity to maybe the team, but it's like, man, I can't think of uh, a worse I don't want to say company, but environment to like step in where I realize like, wow, the person like helming this ship, like this is such a stressful environment that they can't even manage their own health.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, where is this going to take me?
Mm-hmm.
And I do think like as a business leader, like you have a responsibility to show up in, I think, great physical health to say, within the things that are within our control, obviously, of course, to show that like that's the value of this organization. Like it's going to create the environment, the whether that means like the lack of stress, the financial resources, whatever it is, to like actually be able to show up as a healthy human. Like that
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be much to ask. And if you're looking at, I think the owner, the founder, the leader of a business, and you're saying like, wow, this situation can't even afford ourselves to have a focus on our health. Like, gosh, I think I'm running for the hills.
Right, and we are now moving into, and I would argue we maybe have already moved there, is this notion of a culture of health, and it starts right there at the outset in terms of who it is that's leading that culture, and you have an option as a leader to prioritize this stuff and be the example for others, and prove that actually, despite the workload and the stresses that come with working at this company, potentially there's always space to take care of you, and I
Yeah,
think
and
it's so important.
yeah, and you could swap this out obviously for mental health as well, right?
Absolutely.
um Whether it's stress reduction and mindset work, blah blah blah. Yeah, if it doesn't have, if it does not create the space for that, and it's like, so here working at this company I'm going to physically be withered down, and it's like,
Mhm.
how uninspiring and unmotivating of a culture would that be?
Absolutely, absolutely, man. But one question I'd love to ask people like yourselves is, because we are a podcast about competitiveness, and as someone who is very much inspiring others to be competitive towards their health and wellness, to always be striving for higher levels and truly empowering change, what do you consider to be a day where you're like, you know what, head on the pillow at night, that was something I can put in the win column? How do you define the successes, the wins within your day?
That's a great question. um hmm. I would say a good win for me is kind of similar to things I offer to my clients in that, like, hey, am I hitting those like KPIs? Because I would say like I am an absolute procrastinator, like at heart, and
Right.
um, I can identify as some of these what I would say like negative attributes. So almost like taming those dragons is a great day. But ultimately, is it like, did I get done what I said I was going to get done? Like
Right.
that is a great win for me. And it really is, again, like set that goal, set that standard. I mean, maybe for some person that's going to be like a to-do list,
Mhm.
and like, am I hitting it? Like that to me is that's a winning day. And if you start to stack those, whether it's in your workload or whether it's in your nutritional habits, it's like that's what's going to create a win at the end of the month, at the end of the year, etc.
Yeah, I love that, and it very much speaks to what we've been talking about. It would have been very easy there for you to say, "Listen, hey, all my clients are happy, then great." And it's but then you hit the head, your head hits the pillow, and you're like, "Well, I didn't get anything I wanted to get done today."
Yeah,
You
sure.
know,
Yeah,
so I love that you're able to sort of see it. Like, listen, as much as I'm serving and as much as I'm
yeah.
guiding others, the priority at the heart of my happiness, my day to day well being is me.
Yeah, has to be. Yeah, and I mean, and it's funny, like, there could be a day where it's like, okay, you've like done all these client calls, but it's like, okay, well, but what about like Have I done any outreach? Or have I read anything new? Right. Like
Right.
it could get very, like anybody, you can just get consumed within the doings of your business or whatever. But it's like, what are those other little things that like you say that you need to get done, and are they getting done?
Absolutely, man. Good stuff. Well, I'm sure everyone listening can tell we could talk for a long time, and we have a lot in common. We see things from a lot of the same perspectives, and we already joked about that off air. But what I would love to do here, man, is just give you the opportunity just to tell everybody where they can learn out more. I gave you your email, your website address at the front of this, but where can we learn more about what it is you're doing, and really any other parting thoughts you think we need to have today?
Yeah, easiest place to connect with me is livegreatlifestyle.com. That's the social handles as well, but you can head to the website. I have a free training there for anybody who, if they want to get into the kind of the details of how do you set up and execute on improving your health, wellness, specifically if you're looking to lose weight. I do have a free training there. As far as parting advice to people, I kind of always end with this, and it's, and we touched on this as well, but regardless of the environment that you find yourself in, and usually I'm speaking to like your work environment, but it could be again your family life, like kids, blah blah blah. Whatever situation that you're in, there is a way to absolutely inject health and fitness habits within the constraints of your life, and that is the goal. And that's the big rub. You have to do it within the constraints that you personally have. So it's going to look different for you than it is going to be for somebody else. So don't be unmotivated if you're looking around at what other people are doing and you're thinking, man, I don't have the time for that. And it's like, well, okay, but is there something that you will have the time for? And I tell everybody that, again, the cost, it is not as hard as most people make it out to be when you get tactical and specific and you bring in some support. But then the value and the benefits of writing that health and wellness ship, they are far greater than anybody imagines until they actually step in.
Man, it's some fantastic insight on the back end of this, and I always like to leave everybody with some parting thoughts, as I will after we're done wrapping this up. But there's few better ways of wrapping this up than making that really impactful message there of just understanding the constraints and really doing what it is you have time for. What a great place to start. And I really encourage everybody at minimum to go check out Luke's website. There's some awesome content on there. And as he said, some free resources as well. But listen, man, like I said before, we could talk for a long time. I try to keep it within about 35 minutes. And
All good.
I don't know where that 30 minutes went, man. It flew by. But I really appreciate the time, man. I love the insight. And thanks again for joining us.
My pleasure. Appreciate it.
Hey, don't go anywhere. I've got my final thoughts coming up from our guest today. So please take some time, give it a moment, take a drink. I got a couple more minutes I need to get out of you. Some final thoughts. Here we go. Such great insight there from Luke. Really appreciate the time. And as I mentioned on a number of occasions there within the interview, easy to talk to for me. We share so many similar ideals and outlooks on how we go about the work that we do. Quite frankly, how we live life, and just love chatting to and getting some awesome insight on Luke, and really enjoyed making this about health and fitness too. I don't do it too often on the show, but when I do, I love having someone come on who is incredibly reputable, has a great background of working with a highly diverse clientele as well as Luke has. And as much as I really enjoyed that final parting insight that I alluded to there at the back end of the interview with the notion of understanding your constraints and, doing what it is you have time for, I want to make my parting thoughts a little bit more about the idea of making adjustments, the ability to instead look at something as a brand new commitment or something that's going to revolutionize your entire schedule so it can therefore maybe become intimidating. Instead, looking at something and saying, how can I make an adjustment? Luke mentioned it there when he talked about nutrition. Instead of saying, oh my gosh, I've got to start over, or oh my gosh, this is all going to be so disruptive to what I'm used to. Instead saying, well, as Luke said, I already eat. I already put food in my body. So there's some adjustments to make. There's some things I may have to remove, and there's some things that I'm going to have to include. And when we look at it as an adjustment, maybe it doesn't seem quite as intimidating. But let's take that concept and just blow it across your entire life. Think about all the many areas that maybe you've not taken action because you've been looking at it as something that is brand new, that is going to truly interrupt how you go about doing your life, when at the heart of it, it may just be an adjustment that needs to be made. So we're not necessarily giving up as much as we thought, and we're not necessarily taking on as much as we maybe thought, but we're just shifting. We're just making some sort of correction, if you will, to the way in which we are already doing something. Will there be a couple things along the way that maybe are revolutionary, that truly do disrupt what it is you do, how it is you live? Absolutely, but it doesn't have to be where you start. You can start with an adjustment. So I love that insight from Luke in terms of what it means to simply see things, at least initially, as an adjustment. And when we make that adjustment, we start to deliver some momentum within these areas that we're trying to see some improvement. Really helpful bit of insight there, courtesy of Luke. And again, I thank him for his time. And when it comes to Career Competitor, guys, we are not slowing down. As ever, we are going to be keeping the content coming all the way through the remainder of the year. I'm excited to start churning out some content in relation to my book as well. So if you're still listening, Shock the World, A Competitor's Guide to Realizing Your Potential is out now. It is out now on Amazon. It is out and available if you go to my website careercompetitor.com. It's right there on the homepage when you get there, so just click on the link. You can get yourself a personalized signed copy from me with a message if you go about it that way. Otherwise, you can take the much more orthodox route that is that of Amazon. So I'm excited for that to start doing the rounds and people to be buying it. Love some sort of feedback on that as well, if you're able to do that. And in relation to anything and everything else you've got going on within your world, keep up the great work. Good luck with everything you're trying to accomplish at the moment, and I look forward to doing this all again with you all very soon. Bye for now.